no longer able to control the radiation. So there's alarming concerns regarding that across Europe because the prevailing winds leads into Europe. And so the issue has to be addressed immediately, hopefully. But the concern is basically now, as this conflict continues, it comes more and more critical that Europe does something because it is now affecting Ukraine and the possibility of radiation. Think about it, radiation seeping over to Europe.
One more breaking news here coming from newsroom. Deadly drone strikes in Sudan. In South Kordofan, it is belongs to Sudan. Drone attacks hit a kindergarten, a hospital, a rescuer and rescuers, killing dozens including children, according to the local officials. The attack has sparked international condemnation and deepened humanitarian concerns in the region. But I want to come back to Russians' drone attack, 650 drone attacks and 51 missiles overnight in different infrastructure. I just want to know, sir, from you, how might widespread infrastructure damage over winter affect Ukrainian civilian moral and social resilience?
Well, I think that we have to look at the Ukrainians as real heroes who have stood up to a superpower and have not blinked, even now. I think that most of the people still Slava Ukraine. They want to see victory. They want to see some freedom for their country. They want to maintain their sovereignty. And I don't think that they are prepared to concede the territory willingly to Russia. That may come to pass, but that's not on their agenda. I think that, as Norman has said many times in the past, we're facing an upcoming winter which is very, very severe in Ukraine. And the lack of electricity and the lack of power and the provision of heating is going to affect people's morale, no question about that. But we're seeing that Russia is trying to establish the conditions precedent to a ceasefire agreement or some sort of a peace agreement by trying to show that they cannot be stopped, that they are the superior power, that it is not really a negotiation for peace, it's a concession and a surrender by Ukraine.
Yes.
Sir, let me get the impression from Shamsul Alam Pantho, SATV's international affairs commentator, who was following this event from day one, I might say from 2022. I still remember the day Russia attacked Ukraine. We started English show at night. Can you remember, sir? I just want to know from you, is the continued drone missile barrage shifting this conflict into a longer or more destructive phase, and what could be the long-term consequences for regional stability in areas like Europe?
Thank you so much for the question. I want to bring in what I have latest regarding the Russian side. Vladimir Putin and his administration seems to be in a position to take a specific city in the eastern flank of Ukraine, specifically the Donbas region. Vladimir Putin recently had said that he would use all military force possible to take this region at large. So that is the recent developments that I have. But ever since the starting of this war, we have seen how Ukraine is continuously losing much of its land, much of its people. And of course, over the war of now 3.5 years, we've seen numerous deaths, not only in the Ukrainian side, but also in the Russian side. So once again, bolstering ties between Russia and its allies. Today, I had to call it as Russia and its allies, because this is the very same term that we used back in the day. At the end of the World War II, it was the US and the allies. So right now, Russia's economic and defense ties between Russia and India have stepped up. Before it was military trade, now it's joint production of military hardware. So that's the development that they have shared. And beforehand, we've seen Donald Trump reacting to the friendship between Russia and India. And at this moment, the leader of Russia had visited India in New Delhi in the house and the Hyderabad house, and they talked about the various differences that they face in a new stage of geopolitics. But as of the war field, the Donbass region seems to be the target of Vladimir Putin.
All right, sir. From my own source, I have been confirmed that between Vladimir Putin and Narendra Modi, it is not a world diplomacy only, it is not a trade diplomacy only, it is a military diplomacy, and India has agreed to support Russia continuing attack on Ukraine, and to win from NATO, India may support Russia by providing different military things. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to know at this stage from Norman Flood Barnes, sir, what role should neighboring countries like Poland, Finland, Denmark, or other NATO members or European Union play now to deter further strikes or provide humanitarian support, or to stop war, or to start negotiation? I know it is a very wide question for you, sir.
Yes, it is a very broad question. The point is that because of the issues that's happening right now, particularly with Ukraine and Russia and the U.S. Response to it, Europe has to make an assessment of basically what they have. The countries, the neighboring countries around there now have to concern about a more European-centric type of NATO response, and what can we do ourselves, irresponsive of what the United States and other non-European countries is stating. The issue is now becoming very personal regarding the regional area. Russia is basically an arm's length away, particularly with the drones, that they have the ability to cause concern, potential strikes, and using a lot of artificial intelligence and drones to disrupt the day-to-day operations of Europe, and particularly with the energy part. So the countries have to now think about self-preservation versus being supported by their neighbors and agreed comrades. So NATO is going to have to take a very different approach. European unions now have to talk about things that they can do, have to do in terms of self-preservation. So right now, it is more focused on a European NATO response and protection of each other in regards with Russia. They have to stand up and they have to have a response, and Russia have to see that they are doing something collectively instead of waiting for the peace process to happen. Each country have to determine exactly what is best for them.
All right, sir. There is a big question raising and popping up in the international media. What is the takeaway of Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner after meeting Vladimir Putin in Moscow? They have gone to Washington.
Yeah, well, of course, those guys are all about money. And they don't go there to talk diplomacy. If you're going to talk diplomacy, you send Rubio. You talk money, you send Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. This is all about what the United States can get out of this from Russia after the dust settles, so to speak. But let me catch up with a couple of your other comments, okay? One, India is trying to become like a big player in the game. This will fail. I mean, there's no question that by tomorrow morning, Narendra Modi is going to get slapped upside the head by the State Department and by Donald Trump personally. You don't promise to buy fuel from Russia in the middle of this war and think you're not going to suffer the consequences. So the tariff will be like 1,000,000% on India. I mean, the United States is not going to put up with this sort of adventurism by some small little potato like him. Forget it. The second thing is that you talk about, and we talk about, NATO and EU as if it was a monolith. But each individual country in that group has to find their own way. Norman brings this up in a nice way. I listened to the Prime Minister of Finland talking about the 1,000-kilometer border he has with Russia. His needs and his policies are different than Spain. So the closer you are to the poison, the more difficult and important it is for you to have a separate foreign policy. So Germany has a foreign policy that's based upon their own self-interest. They're trying hard to separate themselves from Russia. Same with France and even in the UK. Some of the other smaller players like Italy are sort of watching from the sides, but they're involved in the group consensus, but they suffer disproportionately. Each one of them suffers disproportionately, whether it's NATO or whether it's Europe, the EU. And so they can work together, of course, and they do, but I mean the impact on countries like Moldova and Finland and even like his friend in Belarus, those countries are facing a disproportionate risk from dealing in this war and not coming to the aid of Ukraine. Ukraine loses, everybody loses, but in a different way.
Absolutely. If Ukraine loses, NATO loses, European countries loses, and
in a different
United
way.
States
Each one loses
leadership will
differently.
be under question, sir. Sir, I want to do a critical question to you. If someone wants to play or lead the national team, he has to win in the local team. If someone wants to lead in the international game, he has to win in the national team. India loses all its neighbor, including Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Pakistan. But as per Sir John Dalton, India is trying to be a global player. How come? Is it realistic, or this is a dream, or efforts?
Thank you for the question. I really enjoy Sir Dalton's breakdown of how he sees this Russia and India partnership or friendship. And as I was saying, you know, Donald Trump had raised the tariff up until 50% last time during the BRICS summit, if I'm not wrong. And what happened was that India's exports was hit quite so heavily. This time around, however, India is trying to be a player in the global geopolitical arena. And India and Russia's friendship only will keep one country at bay, one country in check. And of course, I am talking about China. Similarly, if you look at Emmanuel Macron's visit to China, it is to remember that China and Russia are close neighboring countries. One of them are just beyond the border with each other. So the meeting between Emmanuel Macron and Xi Jinping also signifies to keeping neighbors in check. So that is the geopolitical scenario. But of course, the State Department, as Mr. Dalton was saying, will of course have a rebuttal in the case of the friendship between India and of course Russia.
Very fascinating discussion is going on, ladies and gentlemen. I want to do the last question to Norman because it needs to be ended. Sir, should the international community reassess its support and response strategies for Ukraine after this kind of assault, after this kind of escalation, after this kind of brutal attack on the infrastructure, it means on the economy, sir?
Thank you again for the question. The situation is very critical right now. It appears that Ukraine will suffer from these brutal attacks long after the guns and the drones have stopped. What I mean is basically the infrastructure has been basically decimated. We have winter coming on. We have people. We have all these things that has to be put back together either way. So we have people who are still living in the country. We have a country that serves as a international breadbasket for the world. We have energy issues. We have a lot of stuff that goes in between. Ukraine is located directly in between the other parts of Europe, and it provides a lot of stuff that needed in the world. So the European has to assess how can we deal with this situation either way. If it goes with the ceasefire, it goes with the surrender, it goes with continued fighting, how are we going to maintain the normal ebb and flow of the day-to-day life? It is something that has to be addressed. We can't, the countries cannot sit around and wait for a result. The results will be a negative one for anyone who do not take proactive measures to protect their own self-interest right now.
All right,
The
sir.
war is going to end. It's going to end one day, but we still have to prepare for each way. So it is not a win-win situation. it's a situation we have to deal with what we know. And what we know is that we have a conflict and it's not going to end well.
It's absolutely a dire situation in Ukraine going on. Washington Post has done a summary on this issue. They say this assault might galvanize wider international support for Ukraine and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, potentially resulting in increased aid and stronger diplomatic backing by Washington Post. On the other side, Wall Street Journal has written like this: public exposure of civilian infrastructure attacks might raise global pressure on Russia to reconsider its tactics or face sanctions and isolation. I think new problems are arising for Russia as well.
Yeah, but then you have this guy Modi who's trying to make a deal with Russia, a pariah state, that he's going to buy their fuel, which was like totally restricted by the United States policy while sanctions were imposed. But we'll let that play out as a sort of a regional dynamic. We can have fun watching that, okay? Listen, if Russia does not come out on top and is seen to be weak, this opens the real door for China to become their backbone. This would frighten the United States to see China becoming ascendant on account of their losses in Ukraine. And so that's why you might explain the United States flip-flop on their policy. They were strongly Ukraine, providing weapons and so forth, but now all of a sudden they seem to be wanting to accommodate some of the things that Russia is demanding. The Donbass, for example, that they want that to be Russian territory again. Other concessions that they're shooting for as well. And so this shift in policy by the United States that seems to be more pro-Russian, or at least weak on Ukraine, can be looked at through the lens of maybe this is a sort of a play that keeps China at bay. That if Russia becomes weaker, China becomes stronger. And that may be an alternative that the United States doesn't want to face.
All right, sir. Fox
In my
News. Yes, sir. Fox News is telling continued escalations may deepen the humanitarian crisis, civilian suffering, displacement, loss of essential services, undermining long-term recovery, the risk of broader regional spillover, energy shortages, refugee flows, regional tensions increase dramatically. The war may destabilize more just in Ukraine. I just want to take your opinion on this. Between Vladimir Putin and Narendra Modi, this Gita diplomacy, this trade diplomacy, this world diplomacy and Darjeeling tea diplomacy may not work, because European Union, NATO and United States took a strategy. They will go slow to deal Russia, because Vladimir Putin will not be able to lead the Russia 100 years. One day Vladimir Putin has to go or has to die. Somebody will come. That time European Union, NATO and United States will take over.
Thanks for passing me the question. Of course, Vladimir Putin must create a successor to his Kremlin regime, and he's been in power for over a decade or so, and he does have background of being a KGB agent as well. So he has served the nation's military intelligence. That's the leader of Russia. So of course he must think of a successor in the future. But if you look at the Indian part of however it happened, it's important for us as a neighboring country to India as well to understand this dynamic between Russia and India, given that they have had numerous run-ins of in our history as well. But one thing that I have picked out, and I regard that this is a matter of huge importance, is that every nation is doing their best to keep check and balance. They're doing some kind of counter rhetoric to make sure that this year can end and we can proceed on to a new year. Of course, the month of Christmas is upon us, is December, and people are looking forward to a much cool down of the war fronts and understanding between the nations. But as of recent, Russia's diplomacy with India is a matter to be noted by the Western powers.
Excellent. We will move into fragile ceasefire and violence resumption in Gaza or Israel conflict. But before that, Let me read out one more breaking news for you, ladies and gentlemen. Wildfires rage in Australia, New South Wales Central Coast hard, very heat. In Australia's New South Wales Central Coast region, more than 75 fires are currently burning right this moment, ladies and gentlemen. At least 12 homes have been destroyed despite weather improvements. Excuse me. Emergency services remain on alert as authorities caution the danger remains and provide disaster support to affected continues. Time has come to go for a short break. When we will be back, we will be talking about the latest situation in Israel and Gaza.
সারা দেশে লাখো মানুষের কঠোর কর্মতৎপরতা ও নিষ্ঠায় এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন 16 কোটি মানুষের হাতের নাগালে। দীর্ঘ 30 বছর ধরে বিশ্বস্ততা ও দ্রুততার সাথে সেবা দেওয়ায় গ্রাহক সেবায় এখন শীর্ষে। বাংলাদেশে গ্রাহক সেবার সাফল্যের পর এসএ পরিবহন পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস এখন বিশ্ব বাণিজ্য কেন্দ্র সিঙ্গাপুরে। আপনার যে কোনো পণ্য সিঙ্গাপুর থেকে বাংলাদেশে বুকিংয়ের জন্য যোগাযোগ করুন। এসএ পরিবহন প্রাইভেট লিমিটেড, লজিস্টিক্স পার্সেল অ্যান্ড কুরিয়ার সার্ভিস, 22 রবার্টস লেন, সিঙ্গাপুর 218302। ফোন 0065 629 24900।
Before I go to the Israel-Gaza issue, let me read out one different news has come in the international media. International reaction to Hong Kong fire incidents and important election. Following a fire that killed over 150 Hong Kong people, including some foreign nationals, Hong Kong authorities have cautioned international media against spreading false information and slander. The incident has cast a shadow over ongoing legislative elections, raising tensions over media freedom and government accountability. In a country like Hong Kong, media is also suffering its freedom to expression.
You call Hong Kong a country,
Yeah.
you're in trouble.
Yes. So let us move into the Gaza and Israel issue. In an enclave of Gaza Strip, air raids by Israeli recently struck camps including Maghazi, killing several Palestinians. Mediators warned that the ceasefire is at a critical moment. Meanwhile, diplomatic efforts for a lasting peace, including a planned second phase under a US brokered agreement, are still unresolved. News is very clear. I just want to know from you, is the current ceasefire sustainable, or it is just a temporary pause before renewed fighting?
Well, I think we've already passed the stage of when you would expect the combatants to be ceasing their fire. Israel has continued unabated to its attacks on Hamas and on the civilian population. Part of it in the north has now been abated, but there's no question that they do not respect international law and do not respect their signature on a document that supposedly guarantees ceasefire. So, I mean, what's interesting about this conversation today, it's like we're dealing with the Psychopaths Hall of Fame. Netanyahu, Putin, Modi, Maduro. I mean, we're dealing with a places in the population,
sir,
they're all psychopaths.
I beg your pardon, why didn't you name the Washington's gentleman, Donald Trump?
Yeah, well, actually, he's the king. You never attack the king. But I mean, all of it is sort of encroaching the people using power to advance their objectives without any kind of conscious attention to human frailties and human needs. Starvation, bombing, freezing. All of these things are being done in the name of these countries that are trying to advance their objectives. And oftentimes when we talk about Gaza, we miss the fact that this is Palestine, that the same sort of crazy stuff is going on the West Bank, and that Israel has shown no willingness in any way to lessen their attacks on the Palestinians, the Palestinian residents there. These settler populations are breaking that up as well. I think there's a chance that this kind of an environment is going to diminish the authority of the United Nations to the point where they'll become disrespected worldwide, because the simultaneous presence of all of these activities by psychopaths seems unable to be resolved in this community setting. I don't know what you think of it.
Very, very fascinating and well structured. Sir, Shamsul Pantho, SATV's international commentator, sir, what guarantees or mechanisms are needed to ensure Israel's withdrawal and a fair political settlement for Gaza? Because we see after even ceasefire, you call it fragile ceasefire, after even ceasefire, Israel is every day attacking to Lebanon, South Lebanon and Gaza. So, what is the conditions were in the ceasefire? Because Israel is doing its job, and some commentators are assuming that Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthi, Iraqi militias, Syrian militias may be united to again by the support of Iran regime to go for a massive attack on Israel, and that will be the last hit. These are the comments from different commentators. I don't have any solid evidence in the international media.
Well, thanking you once again for bringing me on to this issue. I know that the runtime of this program has been almost 7 months, and in this 7 months we have seen this specific issue regarding the Israeli genocide into the Gazan people, and how the death toll has taken a climb from 0 deaths all the way up until 75,000 those who have been killed or murdered. And of course, as of recent, the peace plan, the Sharm el-Sheikh declaration, and all of these combined efforts could still not get the Israeli withdrawal. I was hearing how you were questioning me about the Israeli withdrawal. I believe that would be the dream of the Palestinians if they would actually withdraw from these locations. As of recent, we've seen almost 6 Palestinians killed despite having this ceasefire, and of course in the last 50 days of the ceasefire, almost over 300 people and 300 Palestinians have been murdered. And as per your question, how the regional players are also taking Israel at a large, well, over 80 years ago, Tel Aviv was a desert. There was nothing there, and so the creation of the modern Israel had come about. Well, if you look at Syria, if you look at Lebanon, even in Lebanon they had killed and murdered a couple of days ago Hezbollah leader, breaking a ceasefire with the Lebanese authorities as well. So they do not understand the language of what a ceasefire can do. As of recent, we see the Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Jassim Al Thani speaking at a Doha forum, and he was one of the leader of one of the nations that were seen as a mediating nation across from Egypt. And what was going on is because of the strike on Doha, it sent ripples across multiple communities. We knew that Qatari news channel and media agency Al Jazeera was banned from direct reporting into that place, and the Israelis have made sure that to keep them out, no matter what are the means necessary. So the hostilities are not new. These have been continuous in the last couple of weeks, and even because of a ceasefire, maybe the drasticness of the deaths have gone down, but the deaths are still happening. There is no full stop, there is no end that I see that is happening. Even after mediating nations are taking to storm on social media and television screens that Israel has way past its limit.
Sir, then why, according to your statement, may I ask you, why you call it an active ceasefire?
United States have jumped in regarding Gaza and the future of Gaza. Nowhere it is mentioned of the determination of the Palestinians. And you were asking me whether there would be a renewed tension between Iran and Israel. Look, 403 kilograms of enriched uranium was good enough to scare the United States and Israel. what and where, how, and how Iran will respond to destroying its nuclear facilities is a time-ticking bomb for Israel and United States. They will come back with a retaliation, but whether it will be now or a couple of months from now is the question.
There is a famous law by Newton: every action has its
Equal enough
own
reaction.
and equal reactions. I get sense from Shamsul Pant on this. Sir, I want to ask you a different questions, which is often I have been asked by my audience in the street or in some places, that why don't you talk one thing? Israel got the license to attack any country in the Middle East. Israel got the license to kill anybody, any generals, any leaders. But if somebody retaliates, then world call it terrorism. Sir, would you please explain why judgment is two type for two nations?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to realize how clever Israel is at manufacturing information and using information selectively to advance their case. And I think it's also very important to admit that Israel knows that it has the United States in its back pocket, and that no matter what happens, you know, the United States, Democrats, Republicans, Christians, Jews, no matter what, Israel has a protected status in the United States. And so this itty-bitty country, this little tiny messy country, bunch of rocks in the middle of nowhere, can in fact cause the international community to support it without any limitation. This has been going on since the Balfour times, since the 1947 war. All of the time, Israel manages to come out as if they are the victim, when in fact they possess all the weapons and do all the attacking. I'm sure that, you know, 75,000 deaths in Gaza, okay?
Right.
In the Israeli press, if one soldier is injured, that's equivalence as far as they're concerned, and shows that Hamas is on the attack. The 75,000 deaths are wiped off the books, and that one soldier becomes the hero for the Israeli population to rally around and support. It's just psychology of being a victim all the time means that they consciously try to manage the news to make themselves look as if they are under attack, when they are in fact one of the largest arms dealers in the world, selling to European countries, where they have massive cybersecurity capabilities, where they are very much in charge of other aspects of the war machinery. But they are able to escape any kind of deep inspection because they manage the United Nations, they manage the news, and they manage the United States.
Sir, you have the experience to work over there in Gaza, in Palestine, and also in Israel.
Right.
May I ask you a direct question? You know, the world is run by four kind of establishment. One is military establishment, military businessman. One is corporate. One is financial giants, and another one is tech visionaries. My question is, as far I know from the Washington Post reporting, tech giants, corporate giants, financial giants, they don't want any more war because they are losing business. But the military industry is booming. Do you think military establishment is more powerful, even combine the three other giants?
Well, it's certainly equal to it, and I think it may actually be stronger at the moment. I mean, don't forget, Russia's economy is a war economy. Okay, their whole survival right now is because they're producing tanks and bullets and guns and everything. That's their economy. They used to be that they were producers of agriculture and energy and other kind of products. They are now 100% focused on developing weapons of war. And so that is carrying them forward. I mean, there are no real indicators any place in the financial community that people are suffering because of these wars. Stock market is at an all-time high. Investment is at an all-time high. Even green investment is on an all-time high. So there's no evidence that any of these wars are having a negative effect on any part of those four economic pillars. But clearly the military are definitely benefiting. Russia is just, if the production of all of these drones is an indication of Russia's capability to ramp up these weapons of war and to use them against Ukraine with sort of unlimited effect.
All right, sir. We have got back the Washington connection with Norman Flatt Barnes. Let me ask him a question, sir. Military establishment or military lobby or defense business lobbying are so strong. They are starting one after one war around the world. They are using Donald Trump to move the focus shifting from Middle East to Ukraine to Venezuela. My just question is, could a political solution or the interim decisions by the world leaders can stop this war, or world leaders are somehow, some way caught or beneficiary from the defense establishment, defense businessman? Norman, what would be your comment on these direct questions?
Yes, my direct response is war is big business. To the fact we changed our government, our cabinet is now the Department of War. That wasn't some fraudulent slip. It was made by design. The lobbyists, the people who basically fund and do big business, concerned that not concerned, but they want to make sure that this war business goes on globally. We know one for a fact that Russia, under the Putin's administration, is designed for war. If you don't have a war, we're going to make a war. We don't have a war, we're going to create a war. So war is going to be there, and the manufacturers and the business people are hell-bent on ensuring that there will be a conflict somewhere on this planet so they can make a profit. So basically, we're talking big business. Peace is not good business. Peace is something that we do resetting to start another conflict. So when you see peace, it's just a reset for a conflict somewhere. So the impact of this is basically it's all profit.
What I understand from Sir Norman, war is a very lucrative, profitable, dynamic business. Peace is not a business. I am sure I have seen the expression of our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Pantho, and also very experienced personality, my very favorite John Charles Dalton. I want to get the same comment from both of them, if they agree or disagree. Shamsul Alam Pantho first.
Well, thank you for passing it to me. I want to relate to what Norman Flatt Barnes was telling us and also our viewers. A popular hard rock metal band, Megadeth, and one of their album name is called Peace Sells, but who's buying? We come back to the issue of war and how these military companies are expanding their capacity to create more, and the entire fact of how technology and innovation are playing a key role in military advancement of both software and as well as hardware. These are quite important, as the title suggests. No one wants to accept in a peace or a world peace, but it is not lucrative as much as it would be if everyone was in a state of war. So once again, I would want to say that peace sells, but nobody is wanting to purchase that.
So we actually vote in the name of democracy to create and to give power to the leaders to do war, to kill the civilians. I want to definitely listen your comments on this. War is a lucrative business. Peace is not a business.
Yeah, well, I think that's quite true. I think that war has built up this military-industrial complex. You may remember that Dwight Eisenhower, when he was sworn in 1952, warned the or 56, warned the population about the growth of the military-industrial complex and that it someday would overwhelm democracy. And so that was a very important touch point. A current touch point for me is to know that this continuing resolution for the Department of Defense is now $1 trillion. That's their annual budget, $1 trillion. So clearly, the people are willing to endure the price of war. The price of this, if there is not a war happening, they'll create a war, as Norman has indicated and as you've indicated as well, Panto. So there's no question that that peace doesn't sell. The war is very, very important. But if you look at all the arms sales, who's selling arms, it's France is selling arms and Israel is selling arms. And so nobody is above this. I mean, there's no innocence in this engagement. I mean, everybody is looking at, if you're a production company, you're producing weapons of war.
I enjoyed the comments and the statements from three of my very valuable and distinguished panelists today. Norman Flood Barnes, SATV's geopolitical correspondent from Washington DC, our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Pantho, and of course John Charles Dalton, an international consultant who has experience on international issues, especially international relations. The production team is pushing to go for a the end of this program because they have a back-to-back live special bulletin at 3 p.m. They need to take preparation, but I want to close the program with few favorite quotes on war. I love what does not determine who is right, only who is left. Barton Russell. In war, truth is the first casualty, because in recent time we have seen how media engage themselves into war for creating narratives. Older men declare war, but it is the youth and general soldiers who must fight and die. And last one is, only the dead have seen the end of the war. War is what happens when language or dialogues falls.
That's a very excellent. Can I say one thing? Just real quickly, I want to just call out to all of the viewers here. You know, suffering is going on in Sri Lanka and in the Philippines and in Thailand. If you have the chance to catch up with those embassies and do something in a humanitarian sense, it'd be much appreciated. I'm very much interested personally in the Sri Lanka, where I was there last year. I lived in the Philippines, and I've also just came back from Thailand. So whatever you can do in a humanitarian sense would be much appreciated.
This is very fascinating message to all of our viewers. I really appreciate you, sir, for your kindness to the humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to go, but tomorrow we'll come with new guests, new topics, new breaking news. Please stay with SATV. Keep tuned on SATV. Bye.